big bell. Join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic and one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America, land that I love, and beside guide through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, everybody. You can be seated.
Okay, here's some words of inspiration specific to music. Where words fail, music speaks. And that's from Hans Christian Andersen. A little bit more current. Music touches us emotionally where words alone can't. And that's a quote from Johnny Depp. Music is the universal language of mankind, from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And just one more quick one here. Music is healing. Music holds things together. And that's a quote from Prince.
I'm going to stand in front of the camera for a bar once. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ballentine. He is the
Hold your mic up.
Hold your mic up.
He's the music director at Easton Area High School. I believe in 2000, if I figured it out right, 2011 graduate of Easton and a 2015 graduate of a music program at Penn State. He has two students with him today that he'll introduce. I've met him a couple of times. My grandson's a freshman in the Easton band, so we've seen it a couple of times, and we actually, Sue and I were down in Disney when they played at Disney Springs and also over at the Magic Kingdom. So without any further ado, I'll let Mr. Ballentine continue the introductions.
Yeah, good afternoon. We're excited to be here with you today virtually. So my name is Chris Ballentine. I am the band and orchestra director at Easton High School. It is my 6th year at Easton and 9th year teaching overall. I taught for 3 years out in Pittsburgh in the North Hills School District. And I have two students with us, Josh Franklin and Angelina Padilla. They're two student leaders in our program. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Josh. I am a senior trumpet player, and I'm also the band president.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angelina Padilla. I play the flute, but for our marching band, I am a drum major. I'm also a senior.
So they are two students with us that are two student leaders. And as I said, they're the president and drum major. So two kind of symbolic positions within our program. So I am going to move to share my screen right now. And I have a little presentation for you. I'm a big believer that pictures speak a lot more than words do. So I tried to include a lot of photos of the students in our presentation today. So just give me one moment just to share my screen with you all. So as we get started, just a little bit about our program. If you're not familiar with the band and orchestra at the high school, we have a little over 350 students involved in band and orchestra. And then on top of that, we have several students that double in both of our ensembles. Our music program consists of 3 concert bands that meet during the school day, 2 orchestras that meet during the day, 2 extracurricular jazz bands that meet after school, an audition string ensemble, a pit orchestra, which plays for our musical, pep bands, and then one of the most prominent or public parts of our program is, of course, our marching band. So a little bit about our students. I just think it's fun to kind of put some of these facts in there sometimes because, you know, a lot of people see our students on the field, but they don't see how much goes in behind the scenes. So a little over 65% of our students in band and orchestra are also enrolled in at least one honors or advanced placement class. We have a couple students that are also currently doing a dual enrollment class. And then a little over 20%, or 1 out of every 5 students, also plays a varsity or JV sport at the high school as well. So a lot of the students that you see on the concert stage or on the marching band field are also heavily involved in other parts of our school, whether that be academically, athletically, involved in the musical, whatever that may be. And one of the things that I tell all of our new students coming into the program is that one of the things that makes us strong as a program is the diversity of our students, and having students that are involved in every club or come from different backgrounds. And I think we're a strong program because our students support one another and respect those differences that we all have. So this is a listing of different accomplishments of the last 4 years of our band and orchestra program. I'm not going to run through all of them, but you can see there's from every ensemble with our orchestras, playing with the piano guys, which are a international duo. We did an Electrifier strings performance last year, which is meant to expose string students to rock music. And so we brought in a guest clinician. They got to play on electric instruments. Our pit orchestra has won the Freddie Award for 2 years for the best pit orchestra. And then our marching band has traveled to the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York City, the Apple Blossom Parade, down to Westchester a few times for their Christmas parade. And then most recently, both our band and orchestra went to Disney and performed both at Disney Springs and Magic Kingdom. And then our jazz band also traveled overseas to Germany. You'll hear about Disney World and Germany in a little bit from both of our students as well. So as I said, I'm a big believer in photos. I have a lot of pictures to kind of go along with what I'm saying as we go through the presentation. So this first slide that you see is, I think, how most people would associate our marching band. You know, it's the students in uniform, they're performing on the field, they're in the stands, whatever that may be. And when people think of our band program, this is what I think a lot of times the community sees and thinks. So you can see up in the top left-hand corner, this is one of our drum majors from last year, which I think is just a really symbolic photo of what I first mentioned on that slide about how our students are involved in so many things. And that was one of the football kickers for the football team, who also served as one of our drum majors. And then over on the right-hand side, last year we started a new pregame tradition, and that involved, changing up our routines and our drill formation. And we brought out 2 heralding trumpets, and then we continued that on into this year as well. And there's some great other action shots around on this scene. Now, our marching band is really successful because of our students and our leaders. We have a leadership team of about 55 to 60 students, and that ranges from people like our drum majors, like Angelina. We have a senior cabinet, which Josh is the president of that organization. And then we also have librarians that are in charge of all our music. We have quartermasters that are in charge of loading and unloading, section leaders, historians in charge of social media, so on and so forth. But in order for our organization to go anywhere, do anything, it's really students that are doing everything. Besides myself and one other teacher, all of the other adults that we have are either volunteers that donate their time or are part-time positions that are like they get a stipend for their activities after school with the band. But almost all of the work you see is put in by the students in terms of loading, unloading, getting the music prepared, so on and so forth, or done by volunteers. So this next slide is more often how I think our students would think of marching band. So that first slide is what the community thinks. The second slide is more about how I think our students remember their time. And this is the time in the stands. This is at pep bands. So I'm going to go through these photos because, this is their memories. So up in that top hand corner is from the Pink Out game. And you can see Josh is one of those trumpet players. The second photo down is from our Marchathon, which happens the first Friday of every band camp. It's a fundraiser we do. Every section gets to pick a different theme that they dress up as. And that is a picture of some of our clarinets, and they had the Barbie theme because that movie came out this past year. You can see Angelina is one of the flute players in the bottom left-hand picture. This center picture is some of our juniors from last year, now seniors, getting ready for Thanksgiving. And one of the traditions that we do is our junior band members will cook breakfast for all of the seniors the night that they sleep out to protect the bonfire. And so you can see they stay up all night. They are slightly grumpy the next morning because they didn't get any sleep, but it's a really nice tradition as well. The bottom picture is a picture of a couple of our students at a pep band at Rob's Farms. And then the picture in the top right-hand corner is one of our quartermasters from last year unloading the bus and opening the hatch on top of the bus. If you're not familiar with how we kind of transport all of our equipment and instruments, everything is transported via 2 buses that are hollowed out, and we put shelves in them, and that's how we transport everything back and forth. Moving on to our string program a little bit. So we have 2 orchestras and a chamber string ensemble. So you can see we have a couple pictures of our strings camp. The Electrify Your Strings is down in the bottom left-hand corner. And then just some various other performances as well. The most recent being this past December, when members of our chamber strings went to play at the Easton Public Market downtown in Easton right before the peace candle lighting. And then we have our jazz band. So Josh is a member of our jazz band. You're going to hear from him in a moment about our trip to Germany recently. But our jazz band is another auditioned ensemble. They perform in a Christmas and All That Jazz concert. We started that in 2019, where we just play holiday music in our instrumental room, which is that picture in the center. And then they compete pretty extensively in the spring semester, with our first competition coming up in 2 weeks at the Bethlehem Steel Stacks. And then we end our year with a Saturday night swing event, which is we create a club type atmosphere in our rehearsal room where we serve like hors d'oeuvres and mocktails, all while enjoying some music by our jazz band. And this year we're really excited. Angelina is our first vocalist that we've had in jazz band in several years. So if you were at that Christmas and All That Jazz concert, you got to hear her performing on 2 charts with our jazz band as well. Our pit orchestra is pictured here. Again, this is our group that plays all of the music behind the vocalists on stage. You can see a picture of the pit orchestra over there. And then this year, both Angelina and Josh will be on stage in our musical, which is coming up the 2nd weekend in March. So moving on then a little bit to what has our program been up to. In the last 18 months, we have traveled a little over 10,000 miles between various performance opportunities, whether that be to Washington, D.C. and Virginia for the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Parade, New York City. Our wind ensemble went down to Temple University last spring for a wind invitational. Our marching band went to Rutgers University last fall to do a side-by-side with the Rutgers University Marching Band. And then we also had several students performing with the National All-Eastern Orchestra. That took place last spring. We had a French hornist who ranked #1 in the country in all of the French horns that auditioned for that ensemble. And we also had a cellist and a violist performing in that group as well. And then one of our biggest trips was to Germany in May of 2023. So I'm going to turn it over to Josh Franklin, who had the opportunity to travel with the jazz band to Germany. And he's just going to talk to you a little bit about the experiences that we had while we were over there.
So yeah, as Mr. B said, in May of last year, our jazz band had the opportunity to travel to Germany as part of an exchange program that we started up back from COVID. This was a great opportunity to perform in front of a whole new community. And as students, we got to share a passion for music across the world. So well before we actually traveled to Germany, we hosted the German exchange students around October. So we showed them just kind of what life was here in Easton, and it was a lot of fun. We got to take them to, I know someone went to downtown Easton. We brought them to a football game. And we just got the opportunity to perform together, so it was a lot of fun. We did a showcase concert at the end of their stay with us, and we did some combined pieces together, and that was a lot of fun. Now getting on to our trip, we spent our first day in Germany in Hamburg before we ended up traveling to Berlin, where we spent the first half of our trip. I don't know if we have any pictures from Hamburg, but you do see it. We went on a bike tour in Berlin, and you can see that photo kind of in the middle there, two students on the bikes, which was a lot of fun. So we had the opportunity to tour each of the cities, Hamburg and Berlin, with our host families. And then eventually we moved on from Berlin to Flensburg, where we got to stay with our host families. On our way to Flensburg, we traveled to Lübeck, where we got to visit a school and we ate lunch there. So that was a lot of fun. Got to eat some authentic food from the community, which was just a cool experience. You know, it's fun to be able to hang out with these kids and just, you know, bond over the music. After arriving at Flensburg, we met with our families. And my family specifically hosted a veterinary clinic. They lived on a farm. So it was an interesting experience, to say the least. They had animals running around all day, but it was really cool. It's just a very worldly experience to get to see what life was like in a whole other country. Towards the end of our stay, similarly to what we did with our hosting of the Germans at the beginning of the year, we held a showcase concert once again. We got to play some charts with them. And it was kind of like the culmination of our trip, getting to perform in front of such a unique community, which was really just a lot of fun. But ultimately, this trip wouldn't have been possible without the help of our directors, our volunteer staff, and the student leaders, and all of our participating members in jazz band. So it was just really a lot of fun, and I can't wait to go back sometime soon.
Yeah, and so you can see there's various pictures up on here, but we took a flight over to Dublin, Ireland, had a brief layover, and then went right to Germany, and we traveled a lot of the country. One of I think the neatest parts about this trip was it wasn't that we just went over there and we're kind of on our own as, you know, foreign citizens, but we spent the whole week with these host families. And as Josh had mentioned at the beginning, they had traveled over to the United States in October of that year prior. So the students already knew each other. And it was, for me, a really neat experience to watch our students alongside their students, getting to learn from one another, getting to see what school is like in Germany and how it's very different from school here in the United States, and all of those things. And you can see a picture of the kids in the classroom in the bottom left-hand corner, and then just various other pictures. But it was just such a wonderful opportunity and a cultural experience for our students. And then, so moving on to a little bit more of a recent travel. So 7 months later, in the same calendar year, we decided to take our marching band and orchestra to Florida. And so Angelina is going to talk about that experience from her perspective.
So before Florida, there was a lot of planning, there was a lot of meetings and a lot of rehearsals going into the work to make sure that we were prepared for our performances. There was a lot of fun stuff, a lot of new things that we got, like the flags all got new silks. We got these cool LED lights to go around all of our drums. I got to put Christmas lights on my mace. And then we went and we rehearsed, we marched in really cold weather, but it was a lot of fun. Getting to Florida was a whole other adventure. We had a million different buses with a million different kids with a million different flights to get on. So there were people leaving from JFK, there were people leaving from Newark, and then we all met up in Florida. And the first place that we went was University Boardwalk, Universal City Boardwalk. And it was a lot of fun. We got to go and see all the different stores. We got to take pictures, and then we ate at the Hard Rock Cafe, which we took up a whole floor of space with all of the different band and orchestra kids. After that, we got to go to the Andretti's arcade, and there was a cool 3D experience with laser tag. You got to choose what you wanted to do. It was a lot of fun. We went back to the hotels, and with the staying in the hotels, it was really fun to be able to spend that time either resting or just hanging out and chilling with your friends. The next day, we got to go to Hollywood Studios, which was really fun because even though it was a little bit rainy, we got to spend the whole day with our friends going around to all the different places and getting on different rides. And it was raining, but it was still a lot of fun. The next day, we got to go to Disney Springs, and again, there was shopping, but because I'm not an orchestra, got to watch the orchestra performance. It was super fun. They did an amazing job. We got to, get around, have good food. And then after our trip to Disney Springs, we got to go and visit Epcot, which was a great time. Again, just being able to see all of these different people and interact with all of your friends, try all these new things. It was a really great trip. And then after Epcot was our day in Magic Kingdom, which was when the band had our performance. So we woke up, we got all of our uniforms and everything ready. And then we got to really see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff in Magic Kingdom, which was really cool. So we got to go and we got to see the performance rehearsal spaces, and we got to get into our uniforms, we got to warm up. Seeing everything behind the scenes was really cool. It kind of made the magic almost cooler. And then getting to march down Main Street was a wonderful experience for everybody. There were decorations everywhere, and there was a ginormous crowd. There was people everywhere. And it was such an awesome experience being able to perform and have the lights, being able to be in such a special place. And then afterwards we got to watch the light show that goes up on the castle, spend some more time together, and then we headed back to the hotel. Overall, the Disney trip was so fun. It was such an amazing experience being able to be in such a special place with such a special group. There was a lot of bonding that happened. We got to grow as musicians, and it was a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, and as Angie mentioned, we took 4 different flights down and 4 different flights back. And one of the flights had 140 students on it. And so you can imagine if you were not with our group, at first sight, you're thinking you see 140 students, you think it's going to be a crazy loud flight. But as the time we got off the flight, every single person that was on the flight that was not with our group just commended our students on how respectful they were on the plane. And I mean, A, they were tired, but B, they were always willing to be quiet and to be respectful of those other passengers on the plane. And I just think they represented our school and our community with a lot of pride, both in the performances of our band and orchestra, but also I think in some ways, more importantly, in the way that they acted when they weren't in performance mode, when they were around in the hotels, when they were on the planes, on the buses, having their free time in the parks. But it was a wonderful experience, and we couldn't have done it. We had 2 nurses that went along with us that are both parent nurses, and we also had a team of 13 chaperones go as well. So they were just a wonderful group to have watching after our students. So kind of now turning our site to moving forward a little bit, the 24-25 school year is going to be a big year for our marching band program specifically, as it is going to be our band's 100th year. The band was founded in 1924, and so it's going to be a very exciting year for us. And there's a couple things that we're looking to do to make that year special and commemorate that year, and not only honor the legacy of those that came before us, but also make sure that our program is protected moving forward and hopefully for the next 100 years. So next year, right now, our students are in a design contest to see who can design a logo for the band for the 100th year that will incorporate the 100 years and our Easton logo. We are having a marching band field show, which is all the music that is written. It is going to be specifically written for our high school next year, which we have never done before. So that'll be a really exciting thing to commemorate the 100th year. Our marching band will be doing a recording session next year, recording our stand songs and field show. And then we're also going to be looking to engage alumni in various activities that will be coming out next week. And we're also going to be kicking off a Leave a Legacy fundraiser, hoping to engage not only our alumni, but also our community in trying to raise enough money to support our scholarships on an annual basis, and also several of the once in a lifetime things that come around with the 100-year anniversary of our band program. So just really quickly, and this is the last slide I have. This is the group, our Instrumental Music Association. This is the group that is responsible for all of the financial and chaperone support that goes behind the scenes to making our band and orchestra work. The picture in the bottom right-hand corner is the chaperones that were responsible for the students while we were in Florida. They were a wonderful team. But our Instrumental Music Association is a completely volunteer organization. It is run entirely by parents. On a regular year, not including any trips, we spend about $80,000 to run the marching band, the orchestra, the jazz band, so on and so forth. And then this past year in 2023, the IMA spent about $650,000 to also support the Florida trip and also the trip to Germany, in addition to then our annual operating budgets. And then I just linked our website on there if you ever wanted to check that out. It is run by a parent. We have a wonderful sponsorship program, and it's just a great way to stay in touch regarding all of the wonderful 100-year events that we're going to have going on. So I think I'm going to end it really quickly. We have a video we'd like to show you. So I'm going to stop screen sharing on my end, and it just kicks off our 100th year anniversary. And it shows photos of the band from 1924 of its inception all the way up to today, if you'd be able to play that. So I think it's pretty neat to see the evolution of the band program from when it started 100 years ago to today. But that kind of closes our presentation. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And again, sorry we couldn't be there in person today to talk to you in person that way.
Thank you, Mr. Ballentine. I'm going to start with a question. Can you give us a little bit more detail about what it takes to get 300 some kids to Florida with uniforms and moving everybody around?
Got to turn the microphone on.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started actually several days before we left. We left on a Friday morning at between 1 and 2 a.m. But that Tuesday, we loaded a tractor trailer with all of our luggage, uniforms, and equipment. So the planning for this started about 8 months prior to our travel. And if you are familiar with Frick Transfer, based out of Forks Township, they were generous enough to give us a sponsorship and donated a large portion of the tractor trailer to help us get our equipment down there at a fairly low cost. And then we packed all of our luggage and instruments, and then we had volunteer parents that packed garment boxes full of all of our students' uniforms, labeled alphabetically by section. And that's how we got all of our equipment down to Florida. And then in terms of getting the actual students down there, we had 4 flights, 3 of which left out of Newark. 1 flight left on JetBlue, 2 flights left on United, and then a final flight left on Delta out of JFK. So we had a couple chaperones assigned to each flight grouping, attendance lists, and, you know, kind of prep the kids in terms of some students have never flown on a plane before, so what to expect that way, and identifying the students that were maybe more comfortable with flying and pairing those students up. This way we could be successful moving through security with such a large number of people. But you know, it sounds a little bit daunting to say, you know, we're going to move 300 people through an airport. But you know, it went fairly smoothly, I would say, and the flights left on time. And I think that's a testament to our chaperone team and also to the students and knowing what they needed to do and just following a plan and being on top of their responsibilities.
A couple questions for you. With that amount of money that's needed, what kind of financial responsibility do the parents have to support that, number one? Number two is, can a student who's never played an instrument join and learn kind of as they go, or do they require some musical training prior? And number three, and this will be my last question, your band is massive, and I've always, having 2 kids and a grandson at Penn State, always admired the blue band. How many of the students go from Easton High onto college bands?
Yeah. So I'll answer them in order, and you cut out just a little bit on the first question. So if I don't answer it, please feel free to stop me. So in terms of the money, yeah, it's a large undertaking. And we've been really blessed the past several years to have a wonderful group of parent volunteers on our board for the boosters. You know, in 2019, 2020, we made the transition over to QuickBooks accounting software, which has been a huge game changer for us in terms of our financial abilities, capabilities, tracking profits and losses, all of those things. Where we get most of our money from is from our events. We have found over the past several years that the days of going out and asking people to buy a frozen pizza or to buy this pie or whatever it may be, and you make $1.50 or $2 off that pie, that's not profitable to try and get us to these numbers that we're looking for any longer. So our events, like our band festival that we host every October, September, our spring bingo, we host 2 craft shows, our jazz festivals and jazz concerts. That's where we find that we make the most money as of now. And that brings in probably about 60 to 70% of our fundraising dollars. We also recently launched a sponsorship program. We launched it for the start of this school year, the 23-24 school year. And this is a way to try and engage businesses. You know, we found, and again, it's through trial and error, to be honest with you. In years past, we would go out and approach people and say, you know, we're looking for sponsorships or donations. But then when they ask, well, what can we get in return? We never really had that answer, a concrete answer. And so over the summer, again, a parent team and myself sat down, looked at sponsorship programs of various high school bands from around the country, and came up with this sponsorship program of, you know, if you decide to become a gold level sponsor, here's what we can do, and a silver level sponsor, so on and so forth, all the way up. And that has proved to be successful because now as a business, you can see, all right, for this amount of money, I'm going to have my name read out prior to the marching band's field show every Friday night football game, or my business's logo is going to be in every program, or whatever that may be, depending on that sponsorship level. And then the last kind of way that we get our money or raise that money is going to be through donation-based fundraisers. And what I mean by that is we hold 2 of these a year. One of them is the Leave a Legacy fundraiser, which is new this year, that I touched on very briefly at the end of the discussion. And that is, it's just looking for monetary donations to support things like our scholarships, to support things like that marching band field show, the maintenance of our instruments, and then our marchathon, which occurs in August. And that is where our students will march 50 laps around a marching band field, and they try to get sponsors for every lap that they are marching. And we've traditionally been able to raise around $10,000 on that day alone. So that's kind of how we get to that $80,000 mark. On a trip year, then the students also have a contribution that they try to meet, their fair share contribution for that overall goal. And then, of course, any students that have a financial difficulty, we try to support them as a booster organization, because one of the things that I believe in is that money shouldn't be a factor for any of our students. And playing an instrument is an expensive endeavor, and so we try to reduce that barrier as much as possible. Your second question was, can somebody join the program without having played an instrument before? And that answer is yes. And some of our section leaders who are leaders of every individual section, like the tubas, the flutes, have actually been beginner players in high school. 2 years ago, our 2 tuba section leaders were both beginners. They started their sophomore year of high school, and by the time they were seniors, they had worked so hard over those last 2 years that they became section leaders in their section. So yeah, it's definitely possible. Does it take work? Absolutely. But I think anything worth doing does take hard work. And so that's definitely a possibility. And then the last question you had asked was, we have a large band. How many students go on to play at the collegiate level? And I think that depends. I think a lot of our students go on with an appreciation for it. Some will go to play in pep bands. Like I know there's several at Penn State right now that will go to play for their basketball pep bands. We have 3 students currently in the Westchester University marching band that just went out to the Rose Bowl in California. So yeah, I think there's a fairly decently large number. But yeah, I think there's also students that maybe don't go to play in marching band, but will, for example, there's a student out at University of Pittsburgh right now, and she is playing in their concert band, but not in their marching band. So they take it with them into different ensembles. Yes.
First of all, I want to congratulate you on the fine job the Easton Music Department does, and particularly you. It's a very good history. My question is this: I've been told that the Easton Marching Band is the largest high school band in the nation. Is that correct?
So we are not the largest in the nation. We're probably one of the largest in the state. There is actually a high school band down in Texas that is about 700 kids. And they're a massive high school of about 6,000 people. So, but they are the largest in the nation, to my knowledge. So I think we're definitely on the larger side. But I don't think we're the largest in the country. No.
That's what I thought.
Kathy, go ahead.
Do I speak into this?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a microphone.
Okay.
Batteries, I thought the batteries were
Um,
down.
As a former alum of both the band and the orchestra at Easton High, what are some of the best ways that I can help support you, particularly in this 100th year? And also
Yeah, absolutely.
my brother, who's an alum of the band as well.
Absolutely. So, if you are on Facebook, we are doing a lot on Facebook right now to start gearing up towards that 100th year. But on our website, which is eahsmusic.org, there will be a lot of information coming out regarding the 100th year. We will be kicking off a fairly big alumni event on the 12th. I don't want to give it away too early, but on the 12th of February, which is next Monday, we're going to be kicking off something specific for the 100th year for the band. And that Leave a Legacy campaign is specific to this year only, where, as the name suggests, we are hoping to leave a financial legacy so that we can protect this program going forward. We have found that, some of these instruments, like our sousaphones, are there's a sousaphone from 1922. There are 6 from the 1930s. They are aging, and just like a car, the older something gets, it either requires that maintenance cycle. You're at 100,000 miles with your car, or we need to look at that replacement. And so this Leave a Legacy campaign really kind of looks towards the future of, can we keep maintaining these pieces of equipment and instruments so that that financial barrier is not there for students. So that's one way that will be coming out, and that Leave a Legacy campaign is probably going to be our biggest fundraiser for this calendar year 2024. If I think another really easy way is, if any peers or alumni from when you were in high school, and if you could just encourage them to check out our website. We're just going to be trying to get the word out over these next couple weeks about the events coming up and about this anniversary. We are reaching out to Lehigh Valley Live and some news outlets to try and get publicity that way. And it will be posted on like the College Hill community website. The Lehigh Valley Chorale has agreed to publicize some of these things, but I think word of mouth is another really great way to publicize what will be going on.
All right, a quick question here for the two students. Are either of you planning to pursue a career in music?
I'll go for it. Yeah, so I am looking forward to pursuing a career in music education. Right now, I'm actually going through the process of auditioning for schools. I was just at Westchester yesterday. So I'm looking forward to going through all those auditions. I haven't heard back from anywhere definitely yet. But it's a really exciting process. And then once I hear back, I can go into the process of auditioning for their marching bands, which is something I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and I know I'm not personally going into school for music. I'm going in undecided. I'm into all my schools already, so I'm just trying to flush out kind of where I want to go. But one of my top choices right now is Penn State, and I am planning on auditioning for their marching band once I accept.
I'm curious about your travel experiences. For the students themselves to go to these places and be a part of experiencing different cultures, different people, different families is incredible, absolutely incredible. How many you don't travel every year, I take it? So there's maybe every other year or every third year. How often do you normally do that?
So before COVID, we were trying to be on an every other year cycle. And then since we have come back, we initially started planning our travel in 2021 for the 2022 calendar year. We have traveled more than we normally would have to try and make up for some of that time, and trying to give, like, Josh and Angelina are both seniors, and they came into high school either twice a week or they were completely remote. They were the class that came in when schools were entirely shut down. And so one of the things we worked really hard for over the past 3 years is to not make up for lost time, because that time was still counted and still valuable, but to give them the same experiences that any other high school student would have had in 4 years. We just condensed it into 3. So, Angelina and Josh's class still got to go on 2 large trips. They got to go on a day trip to Rutgers University. Josh got to travel with the jazz band to Germany. Josh got to host the jazz band students from Germany. So we really tried in the last 3 years. We have done 5 different travel opportunities, which is on a higher end for us than normal. But, moving forward, we'll probably go back to our cycle of every other year is a large trip. And then on those off years, we'll do a smaller day trip or a one single overnight trip, still providing those students those great opportunities they get. Yeah.
I saw one of the years, I think it was early 2020, you did a halftime at the Gator Bowl. Is it often that you get invited to perform at a bowl game?
Yeah, so we were actually looking at a couple bowl games for this past December, and the bowl game in 2020 was really special and unique because A, it was 3 months before the entire world changed, but B, we were the only high school band that was invited to attend that bowl game, and we got to perform our halftime show at halftime, which was really unique and special, and our orchestra got to perform at Universal Studios. when we were planning this trip in December, something that I wanted to keep in mind was, we do so much around football games that I wanted to try and get something that wasn't necessarily a bowl game and give our students a different experience. And that's why we ultimately decided to apply for the Disney parade instead, just because some of our students have never been to Disney World before. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to march down Main Street in Disney or perform at Disney Springs. But most likely our next performance will probably be at a bowl game, or another parade at a larger location.
What a great experience for those kids. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. This is my last question, I promise.
No
And
problem.
you may have alluded to it, you may have even answered it earlier. I'm curious, what percentage of your students have their instruments provided for them by the school? And what percentage own their instruments?
That's a tough question. So it depends on the section, I would say.
Probably all the
Example,
tuba players don't own their tuba? Or
so I was going to say, like our tuba players, for example, none of them have their own instrument at home. They have a school instrument. And like I kind of alluded to, like that's our oldest section by far in terms of instrument age. And so we've been really blessed the past couple of years to have a lot of tuba players, and we're trying to expand that section a little bit, which means we're using every instrument. And so right now we're in that position, which is a better, I'd rather be using every instrument than have them just sitting around. But right now we're in that position in the tuba section where we have so many students in the section that the kids don't have an instrument at home. So the only time they get to practice is during that school day.
Yeah,
If
that's
you
what I was
look,
going to ask you, was when do they get to practice? Yeah.
yeah, that's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. But like I said, I'd rather have all the instruments being used all the time than saying, hey, we have 5 extra tubas this year, let's just let them collect dust. Yeah, I'd rather have kids on those instruments. Now, when you look at more of like our flute section or clarinet section, I would say a general statistic would be that somewhere between 60% and 70% of students are either renting an instrument or own their instrument. And then somewhere between 30 and 40% require a school instrument from their section. And I think it'll vary a little bit by that section. But then, and not to be too long-winded about this, the last thing I'll say is that some students use a school instrument because their instrument that they have at home maybe isn't as good of quality, and we have a better quality school instrument. A couple clarinetists in our wind ensemble, for example, we've been blessed with some wonderful donations over the years. So we have some high quality clarinets in our inventory, and they are better than the instrument that they would have at home. So they get to play on those clarinets.
I saw we had a question from Ken online.
I just wanted to say how exciting it is to see what a wonderful program you have, and to compliment you on the incredible organizational process this requires, aside from actually teaching music. And the other thing I wanted to say was that I'm also really excited to see the two of you young leaders, because you're our future. And it looks to me like our future is in good hands. When you grow up in a musical background like this, I think the students learn music, but that music can go with them through their lives. Instrument that I played in high school, I'm still playing. I have a son who was a president of the Easton High School band way back. He's still playing his trombone in a community band and in a jazz band here in Olympia, Washington. And so that's something that you can carry with you and enrich your lives all the way through. So I think the cultural benefits and leadership skills that your program is giving you is just incredible and very inspiring. And we wish you and the whole program well for many years to come.
I got to echo that, because my mother and father met in the marching band at Baylor University. And though my mom has passed away now, my dad, who just turned 92, still plays his clarinet in the church band and the community band in San Angelo, Texas. And he's going strong. And he comes to the alumni band football games at Baylor when they have those every year. And he's like the patriarch now, you know, he's the oldest surviving member, but he's going strong. So, any other comments? What a wonderful,
Yeah, I just have a comment. Go ahead.
okay, comment.
Yeah, it was great that you were able to join us today. I'm sorry you didn't get to eat, okay? We've all eaten here now while you've watched us, but just a comment, my son was in the band and he's in the DC area and there's a half a dozen of the kids that were in the band that still get together. They get together down there and now we're watching our grandson go through this. But one of the things that you might want to look at too is we have sponsored the play before I believe in your program at least once or twice. And we've done some other things, so there are sponsorships available if you can send us something. And just basically, thanks again. It was great to see everybody. Sorry you couldn't be here, but we'll see you at some Easton event, either a football game or a basketball game or somewhere. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.